Good evening. I'd like to call the Tuesday, September 24th, 2024 Housing and Redevelopment Authority meeting to order. The first order of business for the meeting is the approval of the agenda. Are there any additions or corrections to this evening's agenda? Hearing none, we'd be looking for a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
We have a motion by Commissioner Mueller, second by Commissioner Mua to approve the agenda. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Moving on to approval of the minutes, item 3.1. We'll be looking for a motion to approve the August 27th, 2024 HRA board meeting minutes. Is there any questions before we take the motion? Additions, corrections? Hearing none, then we'd be looking for that motion to approve the August 27th, 2024 HRA board meeting minutes.
Move to approve.
We have a motion by Commissioner
Second.
Wooten and a second by Commissioner Mueller to approve the August 27th, 2024 HRA board meeting minutes. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Moving on to organizational business, item 4.1, HRA Budget Adjustment. May we have the staff report, please?
Do you have the presentation? One moment, thanks. All right. Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. Anna Salvador, Assistant HRA Administrator. Before you tonight is budget adjustment for the 2024 budget. It's related to the HRA-owned properties. So just as some background, the HRA does own 42 rental properties that are rented through two programs administered by the HRA. The first one being the Rental Homes for Future Home Buyers program. That program runs for a period of 5 years, so each household lives in the unit for 5 years. A portion of their rent goes into an escrow account that they can then use as a down payment for a home anywhere in the United States. The other 20 units are project-based assisted rental units through the Housing Choice Voucher Program. And those units, we tend to see a longer tenancy of the residents. We have some residents in those units that have lived in the homes for 10 years or more. So just to contrast, we definitely see more turnover, for obvious reasons, in the rental homes units than we do in the assisted rental units. So in 2024, the HRA has completed some significant repairs at a majority of the properties in the portfolio, vastly exceeding the amount of $150,000, which was budgeted for maintenance and substantial repairs between both programs. 34 of the 42 homes had some level of repair that was completed in 2024, with 13 properties having some substantial renovation work. The total spent to date is $1,011,256, which averages out to about $28,893 spent per property. The chart in front of you is a breakdown of the types of expenses we're seeing by type of expense. The biggest expense is coming from siding or exterior work, plumbing, and then also paint and wall repair. The three that I also want to call attention to on this table are plumbing, carpentry, and appliances, because we're seeing consistently in a number of different properties that those were the highest instances of repairs needed across the portfolio. So what has changed, or how did we get here? Primarily, there was a shift in approach towards the properties and how the HRA is maintaining and managing them. One critical component of that is we did add staff capacity in 2024. So we do have an on-staff property manager that is, majority of her responsibility is managing our properties. And we've also initiated a capital planning process. This capital planning process is a significant reason why we are where we are today, and that we started at the beginning of the year doing inspections of every unit within the portfolio, and through those inspections is when we identified some of the significant repairs that we could not delay any further. So the necessary repair work is stemming from a few different factors. One major one would be deferred maintenance in some instances. There's also, as I mentioned previously, low unit turnover, specifically with our assisted rental properties, which just means we haven't had the opportunity to do as substantial of repairs in those units as compared to the rental homes properties in our portfolio. The other thing that was a major contributing factor this spring and summer was the amount of rain that we received. It really called attention to issues around siding and roofs in particular. There was a lot of water damage and mold due to failing roofs and siding in a number of our properties. And so that's also reflected in some of the paint and wall repair costs that you're seeing as well. Repair work is ongoing as we complete the remainder of the inspections in across the portfolio, and we do anticipate a total of $1.2 million is needed in 2024 to cover existing costs and anticipated remaining repairs through the end of the year. This is leading to a total capital investment this year of $1.35 million, and so that 1.35 includes the $150,000 that was budgeted as part of 2024. Other activities that we're planning looking forward is to continue dedicated capital planning to better anticipate future costs. And we've also initiated work to restructure the property budgets to incorporate ongoing maintenance needs in a way that they weren't previously included. Staff is proposing budget adjustment of $1.2 million from the development fund to cover the necessary costs to HRA properties. Just some background quickly about the development fund. The fund is for development activities of the HRA, including acquisition, redevelopment, and disposition of property. Gap financing and TIF transactions are the primary uses of this fund. It's primarily funded through the HRA levy and is currently carrying a fund balance. So these are funds that are not obligated to other programs or projects underway with the HRA of $6.5 million. And so this $1.2 million would be coming from that fund balance of 6.5. The suggested motion is in front of you this evening, and that would just be to approve the budget adjustment staff recommendation. Thanks so much.
Wonderful. Are there any questions? Commissioner Mua.
Thank you, Chair. I'm interested in the plan of the capital plan moving forward and what we are planning to do to make sure we kind of don't get to this state again, because it does feel like there's significant repairs that we have to do. So if you could provide more details on like what that plan is going forward, that'd be great.
Thanks, Chair and Commissioner Mua. In terms of the capital planning, I think kind of the stage we're at right now is we're still collecting data completely, but what we have done already is we've created a tracking system for the repairs that we have done, specifically around roofs and appliances that have like necessary life expectancy dates that we can anticipate and better plan in the future. So those are kind of key things that we're focusing on right now. Another big component of our capital plan is our insurance and how our insurance plays into some of these repairs and costs. When we were evaluating our insurance as part of these repairs, most of them would not meet the deductible or requirement, or were not covered by our insurance, but that was a component of this capital planning that we haven't previously been utilizing as much as we could have been in the past. So those are things that are a part of that capital plan currently.
Commissioner Wooten.
Just for clarification along that same point, the staff is now taking over the responsibility of handling this, whereas before it was contracted out. Am I correct? And so that was probably part of the reason why it was deferred, is because it wasn't as attended to as it should have been?
Thank you, Chair and Commissioner Wooten. Yes, that's correct. Over the years, there's been various combinations of contracting out maintenance and property management components with these properties, and so we've brought a lot of that back in-house and are really focusing contracting on the maintenance component, but yeah, that's kind of where we've drawn that line currently, so that we're much more present in the day-to-day operations of the properties.
Commissioner Mua?
Thank you, Chair. And then the other piece about the past, the history where we typically didn't go into homes until they were vacant, someone left. Is there plans to have an annual review or something like that to make sure that something's not falling through the cracks and now we're waiting, 5-10 years for someone to move out before we can get in and see what's going on?
Yeah, thank you, Chair and Commissioner Mua. One component that we've incorporated with the new maintenance contractor that we're working with is a quarterly inspection of our units to really address and stay on top of preventative maintenance issues.
Commissioner Isay?
Turn on my mic. I just wanted to ask how come the development fund was specifically used, and then also how might that decision impact future projects?
Thank you, Chair and Commissioner Isay. The development fund was identified as the HRA fund that could most directly met the definition of the fund, like the funding source in terms of where we could take these funds. Other places that we considered were the neighborhood fund, but those funds are primarily used for our rehabilitation loan program. And so by taking from that fund, we would significantly be depleting that program. And so because of that, within HRA funds, the development fund was ultimately what we ended up recommending. I will also add, in 2024, we did apply for grant funds specifically for the project-based units for some of these repairs, and we didn't meet the grant requirements to be eligible for those funds. So ultimately, we weren't funded, but that continues to be another part of our capital planning, is how are we seeking additional fund outside of HRA funds for these costs moving forward.
Commissioner Mua?
Okay. I think there's a lot of good questions that have been asked. I think when it comes to the city, the HRA, and our perception to the community, it's really important that when someone needs housing and we say, hey, we have this housing for you, that it's safe, that it's kept up. And so I'm glad we've taken these steps. It's unfortunate that it's gotten to this point where we have to do this. We were able to keep on top of it as much as we probably could have. But I'm looking forward to getting this work done and then making sure our housing continues to stay up to standard, up to code, so that when people do come and live in Bloomington, they can say, we care about you. We're not going to put you in some dilapidated house that's going to fall apart. So I do appreciate that you brought this forward and you're sharing with us kind of the background and the reasons, but moving forward, I think there's definitely going to be more eyes on it to make sure that we don't get to this point again.
Any other questions? Hearing no other questions, we'd be looking for a motion to adopt Resolution 2024-16, approving the budget alteration and adjustment request by the Housing and Redevelopment Authority in and for the City of Bloomington. We have a motion by Commissioner Wooten and a second by Commissioner Isay. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Moving on to item 4.2, HRA Procurement Policy Realignment. May we have the staff report?
Hello, Chair and Commissioners. This is the item in front of you tonight is more of a cleanup item, regarding the HRA procurement policies. I think there's 3 frameworks that are relevant to this discussion that I just want to quickly highlight. In terms of the procurement universe for the HRA. So there's federal and state grants that make up a majority of the HRA's funding, and those grants often have their own procurement policies that the HRA is subject to. So for a significant portion of our procurement requirements, those are outlined by our grant agreements. There's another component of procurement, which is for all of our other funds, including city funds, that is covered by the city's procurement policy. And this is guided by state statutes, and the HRA has agreed to follow this through the staff services agreement that is signed annually. And then lastly, we do currently have a separate HRA procurement policy, which was last updated in 2013. It's in conflict with state statutes and undermines kind of our agreements through the staff services agreement of following the city's procurement policies. So before you tonight is a recommended motion to rescind the 2013 procurement policy, just further aligning and redefining the city's procurement policy as the one that the HRA will follow outside of their grant agreements. One component of the 2013 policy that the board may want to consider carrying forward, which would require an amendment to the city's financial management plan, is regarding emergency powers. So an emergency exists, which is placing in jeopardy human life or property, requiring the purchase of equipment, material, supplies for emergency repairs without requiring a bid. And the action item this evening is to direct staff to initiate work around incorporating these powers into the city's policy, following a similar model to the city's current emergency powers, which authorize the city manager and the CFO authority during an emergency situation. So any policy that we would incorporate would follow a similar model where it would be the administrator and the CFO to authorize emergency powers on behalf of or purchases on behalf of the HRA. This is most relevant to HRA-owned properties, which is why I wanted to bring this forward as a discussion item as part of this, to see if there was interest in working through city processes to amend the financial management policy to incorporate this. If this is something the board was interested in exploring, staff would work with city to draft an amendment to the city's financial management policy. This would ultimately need to be approved by city council. If not, I will say we would be able to still rely on the emergency powers as set out in the city's financial management policy, which would mean seeking authorization from city manager for emergency purchases. So yeah, I'll stop there, but there are two motions on the agenda for this item.
Are there any questions? Commissioner Moua.
For the emergency action plan that's similar to the cities, what is the oversight on that? What's the process? Like once an emergency happens and the administrator and the CFO sign off on it, and how do we make sure that everything is good after that?
Yeah, thank you, Chair and Commissioner Moua. So it's really considering what's already within. So we'll use the city manager as an example. Their signing authority, which is up to $175,000. So what it's allowing is to sign off on purchases without doing multiple bids. So that's really what the emergency powers are authorizing. Anything above that amount would still need to go to city council, for example, in this example. And so most likely ours would follow a similar structure where if it's above $175,000, it would need to come to the board.
Commissioner
And
Moua.
who has the power to declare an emergency in this space? Would it be the administrator, or would it have to come to the board?
Thank you, Commissioner Chair Moua. I switched that. It would be the administrator in partnership with the CFO. Mm-hmm.
Are there any other questions? Sorry. Just one administrative question. I don't have the policy. It's 2024 dash.
It's got to be 17 or 18.
One moment. It wasn't in the, maybe it was in the packet.
It's 17, 24.
17, thank you. Apologize. I was just getting the resolution number. So at this point, we'd be looking for, the first motion would be to adopt Resolution 2024-17, rescinding the authority's procurement policies and procedures to align with city purchasing policies. That'd be the first motion we'd be looking for. So do I have a motion to? Okay,
Second.
we have a motion by Commissioner Moua and a second by Commissioner Doblinger to adopt Resolution 2024-17, rescinding the authority's procurement policies and procedures to align with city purchasing policies. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. The next motion is what she kind of put as discussion, if we wanted to discuss, to direct staff to propose an amendment to the city's financial management policies. I just want to make sure there's no more discussion or questions regarding that item before we move on to it, that motion. For clarification? Okay. So at this point, we'd be looking for a motion to direct staff to propose an amendment to the city's financial management policies to incorporate emergency authority privileges to the HRA via the city council approval process.
Moved.
We have a motion by Commissioner Wooten
Second.
and a second by Commissioner Mueller to direct staff to propose an amendment to the city's financial management policies to incorporate emergency authority privileges to the HRA via the city council approval process. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Moving on to item 5, discussion items. Are there any discussion items this evening?
I have a quick one. I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank you all for bearing with me as the interim administrator during this period, and just want to acknowledge Sarah Abe as the administrator and who will be kind of the main point of contact for these meetings moving forward. So, Sarah.
And Chair, Commissioners, I'll just say I'm really excited to be here. It's been a great first week. I'm looking forward to continuing to work with all of you, and just want to acknowledge Anna for all of the amazing work that she's done as interim HRA administrator during these past few months. It's been incredible while managing her own workload, so kudos to Anna for all her work.
Wonderful. Thank you. I agree. Thank you, Anna, for everything you have done, making this transition smooth as possible. And welcome, Sarah. I look forward to working with you. Is there any other comments on the discussion item? Hearing none, we'd be then moving on to adjournment. So we'd be looking for a motion to adjourn the Tuesday, September 24th, 2024 Housing and Redevelopment Authority meeting.
Move to adjourn.
We have a motion by Commissioner Wooten
Second.
and a second by Commissioner Dolblinger to adjourn. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 6-0.